Shalom, shalom. This week's Parsha is Parshat Vayishlach. And like always, there's so much that we can relate to with today's current events living in Israel. Specifically how the Parsha starts off with Yaakov, Israel, returning to the Promised Land after living so many years in exile and having to face a brother who's turned into a nation who wants his destruction, and he has to come back to live in this promised land that, to his father, and to make a future for himself in the land that God intended for us, with somehow making a peaceful resolution with this Esav and his nation, which he turned into a very huge force, had a bunch of wives, and as we're told, 12 chiefs that came out of him and their children and all his servants and followers that he amassed. When he tried to come and meet Yaakov, it was with 400 people, no small entourage to face for Yaakov and his family. And there's a lot to learn there, so much to learn, but I am compelled, even though I wanted to speak about that, to really focus on Dina this week, because unfortunately with the October 7th massacre, there was so much rape that went on there, and this is part of Dina's story, a huge part of something that she suffered, that unfortunately too many women have suffered on October 7th in such a brutal way. And in today's day and age, where everybody speaks out against rape and violation, for some reason this is not being focused in on, and it's trying to be ignored for some other more popular cause of the poor Gazans that are suffering so much because of the war. And so they take this heinous acts that were done in the most despicable ways and just ignore it, as if that's not a human rights violation of the biggest sort, in a physical, psychological, in all ways. And unfortunately, it's not being given the focus and attention that it deserves, not just for these women who had to undergo such horrific experiences, but anytime something like this is ignored and shoved under the carpet, something worse will be around the corner, and it's something that has to be dealt with. And I want to talk about Dina and the fact that how she was perceived by her captor, because when she's taken, it first says that Shechem takes her, and he sleeps with her, and he abuses her. And when that story is told, she's called a na'ara, which is a young woman, and that's in the narrative. But after he does all this horrific abuse to Dina, and he tried to appeal to her and speak to her heart, and he decided that he loves her in some twisted way. After abusing someone, how you can love, what that means, I don't even know. But he's tried to appeal to her and speak to her heart. And then he goes to his father and says that this, and he refers to Dina as a yalda. I need to marry this yalda, this girl. Like what he's seeing in his eyes to even understand this, the twisted thoughts, is he's seeing a little girl as a plaything, as something that's there for him to play with, not a person. And it's beyond comprehension that he wants now to somehow legitimize and to tell his father, and him and his father go to speak to Yaakov and the brothers, and they're trying to negotiate some sort of a deal to keep this Dina was a hostage. She was held hostage by them, and they want to keep her, and they're trying to make some sort of a plan as if this is something that should be bargained out. But this is a crime. This is a crime. This is not a deal that should be made. This should be persecuted right away and dealt with, so that people don't see this as an acceptable course of behavior. And we're told that Shechem was he was the man. Okay, he was obviously an entitled, spoiled brat who went to his father, and his father obviously wanted to do whatever the child wanted, who knew it made no sense and had to go somehow appeal to Yaakov. And the people were told, when Dina would cry out, nobody said anything. They knew what was going on, but because he was the big man, they all decided to stay quiet, and which is, we know, condoning such a thing and ensuring that it will happen again in the future, which is just despicable. And why I say this now is because, it seems to be getting swept under the carpet, the heinous act of suffering, the untold suffering. It can't even be spoken about what they went through. There's so much suffering. There really is, and there's so much that these people are going to take years and years of therapy to somehow manage to just go on with their lives. But it needs to be discussed. It needs to be put out there. It needs to be condemned very vocally all around the world. What happened should never happen, and when it happens, sometimes, it's not that you can compare these things, but on a lesser scale, with the way that this brutal rapes occurred, it needs condemnation worldwide. It needs to be understood on a universal level that this can never, ever, ever be tolerated, and that the world should want to obliterate Hamas and evil and anybody who thinks that this is okay. And they've said time and time again that they hope to do October 7th as more, whenever they get the opportunity. This is what they want to do. So where is the rage and outrage from the whole entire world? It needs to be spoken loud and clearly, and it worries me. It worries me that since this is a cause, the whole Me Too movement, where everybody was talking about every little incident that they had, and I'm not belittling the small incidents can be traumatic for people. I know that all too well. But, this huge movement and not any focus or attention on the pain caused to these women, it's a shame on the world. It's unbelievable. I have no words for it. So my plea is that we nobody wants to talk about these things. It's hard for all of us, but if we don't, something worse will be around the corner. And so we have to start ensuring, and I'm happy to see that there are groups speaking out, and that as of last week, and people doing everything they can to make this an issue, and to have voices heard for the people who right now are not able to speak out for themselves. So let's continue that fight and make sure that something like this never, ever happens again. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.